See there or something, Renee.
Welcome to Power Fridays Live, and I am your host, Lilith Janelle Pulley Brazotra. And today is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And my co-host Dave, introduce yourself.
Dave Garesso, Purpose Coach, excited to be here and speak again. We had Renee on a long time ago, about a year or two ago now, and she is coming to bring the fire again. Welcome to the show, Renee. Happy to have you again. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
I'm Renee Whaley. I am a financial coach and I am an author.
Awesome. You got to tell us more though. What are you the author of, Renee?
Oh, I'm sorry. My book is A Journey to Financial Fortitude: How I Paid Off 75K, went to college debt free, and paid off my mortgage. So
Wow,
I
that's
wrote it
amazing.
right at the height of the pandemic and published it in 2020. So I just love spreading the message that you can live a life free of debt.
That's
Yes.
amazing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone more passionate about this subject than Renee, by the way. So, and Renee, what an amazing journey, because not a lot of people get the opportunity even, or maybe it's just that they don't take the steps necessary. I wonder what your thoughts are on that. But let Janelle please open us up officially, and we'll get into it.
Okay.
Well, welcome to Power Fridays Live. It is January, Financial Wellness Month. So we do have the financial coach extraordinaire, Renee Whaley, and I'm so excited to hear about your story because it's so amazing. And I was like, well, how is it even possible to live debt free in 2023?
Well,
So
it's definitely possible. I'm proof of that, right? But I'm not the only one out here living debt free. I think it's just more of us probably need to tell our story, right? That like I'm telling it, because sometimes I feel like I'm in a room with people that feel like this journey is not for them. This journey is just for me. Oh, this happened for Renee. She's been blessed in this space, but it's not a thing for me, and it's absolutely possible. Um, I wish more people would grab a hold to that theory and apply the tools and the principles to live a life of debt freedom as well. I think what's happened though, society has told us we cannot live debt free, right? They tell us we have to have a car payment. They tell us we can't go to school without getting a loan. They tell us we can't live in a home without having a mortgage for 30 years. So I just aspire to give people a different perspective. But like I said, it's others out here, but I'm just one that's wanting to tell my story so that people can learn and hear more about it and become believers.
definitely, definitely. So where did you grow up, Renee? And who inspired you to want to live a life of debt freedom?
Um, I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and I think I was probably inspired by my mom. She, even though we struggled and we had a really hard time, especially growing up in low income areas in South Carolina, um, I think that despite that, she didn't have debt, right? She didn't drive a car, so she didn't have car payments. We didn't live in a house for most of, well, for some time we did live in a house, but we were always renters. So she didn't have a mortgage, but she struggled anyway. And so seeing her push through and get through as a single mom with three young kids was very inspiring for me to not only be able to do the same with my family, but to do even more. I admired what she did. I just didn't like the struggle part of it, right? So my goal was to be able to take care of my family without having that struggle.
Well, thank you. And Dave, anything for you?
I just want to point out because I know Renee has this other hidden passion of something she does in her extra time, a new hobby that she continues to get better at. You want to share, Renee?
Are you talking about double dutch?
I am. I think it's so cool when I see it, actually. I see the videos.
Yeah, it's so funny. So growing up, that was one of the things that we did. We double dutch jump rope. And actually in the community where I live, the recreational center down the street, or the park down the street, had a double dutch club. I wasn't a part of that double dutch club, but they were known like nationwide. They would travel all over the country and compete and be in these competitions. So a few years ago, I was walking through the airport. I think I was walking through BWI airport, and I saw these ladies in there jumping double dutch, like literally in the airport. So I just kind of stopped and watched, and they asked me if I wanted to jump. I told them, of course, I wanted to jump, and I was like, wow, I still have it.
And you do. I've seen video proof.
Yes. Yes. So from there forward, I found that the club here in Atlanta, there's several clubs in the Atlanta area, but I found the one closest to me, and I've just been back at it ever since then.
That is awesome. What a cool thing. One day I'll have to, take my shot at it if I ever get the opportunity.
Oh yeah, you have to. And this is a 40 plus double dutch club, so it's all women over the age of 40. So
I think I qualify. I have to be with the guys.
Yeah, when we have events, like public events at different locations, different places, we'll let anybody come in and jump with us.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. You'll have to send me more information on that.
Definitely. And I know timing is of the essence whenever you're jumping double dutch.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so in that vein of timing, Renee, can you tell us a little bit about the time? You just shared your, over 40, but how the time that it took you to get out of debt? There's a time to that. And can you expound and share a little bit more? Because I know I went to school full time, worked full time, and I paid per semester for my classes. And I was one of those who did get a student loan. Actually, my dad got a student loan for me. And soon as I got a real job, he says, "This bill is yours." And so that was my experience. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm helping this credit all those times. So that was my experience. So can you tell us a little bit about yours, as how you went to school, and, did you pay per semester, and how does someone, go to school and be debt free?
Yeah. So first of all, I went to school in my state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my tuition was not double what it should have been had I had gone to school in another state, right? I didn't have to pay out of state tuition. I was paying in-state tuition. And I went to the University of South Carolina, which is considered a state supported school. So I'm sure the government gives them perks here and there. So our tuition would not have been as much as, like, say, a private school or a school out of the state. So that was the first thing. I was like, I'm not going to school in another state. I didn't even go to school in another city. I stayed home and went to school. And I did work while I was in college, but I was not necessarily working to pay for school because I had scholarships. So that's how I got through college, was the scholarships. I aggressively applied for scholarships. I'm talking probably hundreds of scholarships that I applied for. So as I'm going through the process and applying for these scholarships, I'm like, all of these scholarships I've applied for, I have to get at least one, right? So somebody has to give me a scholarship. But lo and behold, every single semester, I would be awarded at least 5 scholarships.
Wow.
And I didn't stop my scholarship search after I matriculated to college. Even throughout college, I continued my search all the way through. I always applied for scholarships year round throughout my entire college career. So it was enough to cover my expenses, and I stayed on campus. So that did make the bill a lot more than what it probably could have been. But those scholarships took care of all of that. I did so well with the scholarships that I would get refund checks at the end of every semester. So I always tell people essentially I was like getting paid to go to school.
That's pretty awesome. I think there's a lesson there to be learned, though. I mean, if you're out there looking to go to college or even go back to college, there is an opportunity to do it, right? It sounds like there is a scholarship out there waiting for just about anyone who's interested, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in 2018, $3.2 billion was left on the table in
Wow.
scholarships and grants, right? So that means the money was out there. The students they just weren't applying for it. And I have come across individuals who who offer scholarships and ask me to share with my network because they're not getting enough people to apply for them. They don't have enough essays to read through or what have you to award the scholarships. And I always tell the story of when my senior year in college at USC, I applied for a JCPenney scholarship. It was $1,000 scholarship, and I applied for the scholarship. And when they called to let me know that I won the scholarship, they told me I won by default because they said nobody else applied for it.
Wow.
Wow.
That's incredible.
$3,000.
Right.
So what, like, I want to make sure we just take this one step further to help anybody who's watching. Like, what steps should somebody take to start? I mean, you're talking about 100 scholarships plus. How do you find those, and how do you complete that process of applying for all those different
part of my company, Financial Fortitude, I offer that service. I will conduct the search for the scholar. I just have to get, their background information, their demographics. And just because I was able to get scholarships for myself, I have credibility, right? I know what to look for, how to look for them. I mean, there are tons of organizations out there. Like if you Google the word scholarship, that's going to come up, right? A lot of those are sweepstakes. What they're really doing is trying to get information, right? They're not. I'm careful not to say that they're illegitimate, right? They may be legitimate, but you're talking hundreds of thousands of people that are applying for that same one, right? So your chances are pretty slim of getting it. Doesn't mean you won't, or you can't get it, but your chances are slim with those. So what I tell people is to call me and I'll conduct the search on their behalf because I know what to look for, how to look for it. I give scholars the tips on, making sure that because one thing about this with scholarships is that you have to put in the work, right? It's not some, I'm gonna maybe apply maybe once a month, or no. It's constant. It's constant. You have to put in the work. You have to find the time. I tell scholars to treat it like a part-time job. Set aside 2-3 hours a week to just only apply for scholarships. And you'll get to the point where a lot of the scholarships, especially the ones that require essays, you can pretty much write an essay and then just tweak it as you apply for the different ones, because a lot of them ask essentially the same type of question, right? Why should we award you the scholarship? Why is college important to you? The same basics. You get you a few templates together and you're good to go. You just change the wording a little bit and you're good.
Yeah. That's great. So that's, I'd love to hear more about the other services you offer. I didn't even realize that was something that you do, Renee. So maybe share with us real quick, what services do you offer?
So the scholarship searches is one. The other is I help individuals and families come up with customized strategies to get out of debt. So it's twofold. And I started with really just doing the coaching part, where I would help the individuals and families until I realized that most of my clients were in debt because of student loans. So I was like, I could probably help them, at least help their children or other family members not go down the same road that they've gone down. I've had clients that had more student loan debt than their mortgage. Like that's a lot,
That
right?
is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. So I think it's just important to, so that's why I thought it was important to start that service. Like I can help them. And I don't, I used to advertise a lot about the scholarship search services, but it's a little time consuming. So I get most of my referrals by word of mouth. I don't put it out there a whole lot, just because I have enough. Well, not enough, but I can't say enough. I have enough that just comes in automatically by word of mouth through friends and family.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So I'd actually like to dive in a little bit deeper to what I would call maybe an elephant in the room. And I'm curious about your thoughts, because when we talk about getting out of debt, that can, like you said, seem like a really, really big task. And like you said, I imagine there are a lot of people saying, this isn't for me. This is such a big thing that I can't possibly see my way out of it. And now on top of it, there's talk of a recession.
Mm-hmm.
So we have people buried in debt, a lot of people out of work right now, and talk of a recession. All of it, it's like three strikes, right? It feels very difficult to navigate that mentally, let alone taking practical steps. So, what should we be preparing for, or especially those that are currently in a lot of debt right now, to start moving in the right direction and prepare for even what's coming?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And a lot of those people that are in those hard situations, like I wished I would have met them earlier, right? Because the steps that I give now are the steps that they would have been taking then, so that when this happened, then they would have been prepared, right, for it. So preparation is key, and a lot of us, we feel like, especially our younger selves, 20s, 30s, feel like retirement is so far down the road. Like I can't think about that right now, you know. And I will say that I'm blessed, and I feel like it is a gift that I've always kind of really was forward thinking. I always thought way down the line. And I know and I understand that most people don't think that way, but preparation is key. If you're dealing with all of this right now, going through, um, right now, it's just like it is what it is, right? You don't have a job right now, you don't have money. You would just have to try and get unemployment at this time. I was there, right? I've been laid off before. I didn't always have, money sitting in the bank, making sure that I was good for 6 months, of interruption. So I was at the unemployment office making sure that I got my piece of the pie. So that's what they can do now. But once they can secure employment again, think about your right now. Think about what you're dealing with right now, and is that something that you want to deal with again? Right? You probably don't want to deal with that again. So you have to be forward thinking in that aspect. So when you do secure a job, you do kind of get back, secure a job and get back on your feet. Then don't feel like, oh, I'm back, and you go back to your old habits, right? Change your habits, change what you do. um, you maybe you can't be the every morning Starbucks queen or king, right? um, Maybe, and I tell especially parents that have adult kids, or adult children, don't feel bad taking them off of your cell phone plan. Like I meet so many adults that are on their parents' cell phone plan.
Wow.
Um, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're struggling and they're not paying that portion of the bill, feel free to take them off, right? So you have to think about things like that. Now that you're back on your feet, um, think twice before going and blowing your paycheck at Macy's or wherever your favorite shopping place is. So it just really requires a lot of inner focus, sitting down. I think my top piece of advice would be just budget, right? And people hate the word budget. They think it's depriving themselves. But I tell people all the time, I still use a budget. I have line item on there for miscellaneous, so I don't feel like I'm being deprived. I also have a line item on there for pocket money, so that I'm not feeling deprived. So if I want to, if I run to the store, Walmart, Target, whatever, and I just see something cool that I want, I know that I have pocket money that I can get that with, right? So it's not depriving yourself. It's just planning. Really, that's all it is. It's planning. But budgeting is key. I feel like I'll do it the rest of my life, even into retirement or what have you. I just think it's really, really important to know where every dollar is going.
Let me be the first to say too, Renee, on record, I will have zero problems taking my children off my cell phone plan once they're adult. That will not be an issue. But also, more seriously, to validate your point too, I can honestly say, because I started my journey to debt payoff too back in late 2016, 2017, I've got about 5 to 6 years of data where I can tell you every penny I spent and what I spent it on. And
Wow.
gosh, it's work, and you got to spend the time, like Renee's saying, but it is possible to do it if you're willing to put a little bit of time in each week or even bi-weekly, right? Maybe start small, but I can tell you this, if you do it once a month, it's going to be a lot more work at one time than doing it once a week.
Yeah. I mean, I just literally, within the last few months, graduated to once a month, because I was doing it biweekly, because that's how often my husband and I get paid. We get paid on a biweekly basis. But with financial fortitude and all these other things I have going, trying to squeeze and trying to budget every 2 weeks became too much. So I had to just, at the top of the month, is where we go in. And we're new to that type of budgeting, so we have to do a lot of thinking and planning throughout the month and jotting things down as we think about it. Because this past for January, I had everything laid out. The budget's finished, it's complete, and then like maybe January 10th or so, my husband goes, "Oh yeah, we got to pay for Jonah's basketball outfit. Oh, and they come with shoes, and so we got to get the shoes too." And I'm sitting here like, I asked you if there was anything that we could budget for. So it takes time, and so if you're budgeting and you're even if you're doing every 2 weeks and you've never budgeted before, it takes like about 60 to 90 days to get used to, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
Yes, I agree, because I bought some strawberries at a market that I just happenstanced on, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I spent like $50. I said, "That's the grocery budget." So I justify. It's like, "But that's the grocery budget."
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And the envelope system is great too, especially when you're new. But I mean, some people never stop using the envelope system. And I'm a realist, right? And it is kind of starting to become harder and harder to pay cash for some things. You can't go to the Braves game and think you're going to get food with cash, right? They require plastic. And even after COVID, some businesses wouldn't, they didn't want to touch the money, right? So they went total plastic. I mean, we went to dinner tonight. The lady came to our table with the device in her hand at the table. We had to give her our card. So I know it's getting increasingly harder to pay cash for some things, but where you can pay cash, I think the envelope system works really good for that, because once that envelope is empty, you're done.
Yeah, there's an emotional attachment, right?
Yes. Yeah. Seeing that money go off after you've purchased something it just leaves your hand. It psychologically does something more than just tapping or swiping the card. You know, the tap thing has become popular. I love the tap though.
I do too. I use Apple Pay actually. It's pretty cool. I forget my wallet. I still have my phone. Right.
Yes. Yes. And you know, that's the thing we have to be careful with. Like, they're making it easier and easier for us to spend our money. You know, I think like in the Apple store, you don't even have to engage a person. You kind of just get your item and scan it and go. And even at work now, after COVID, you scan your food and go. Like, you're not exchanging cash. So you're just going down there, barcoding everything with your phone and walking out.
Cashless society. We are on our way.
There's an app for that. There's an app for that.
Yes.
So in that vein, we're talking about apps and the envelope system. What other tools are out there to help with budgeting, right? I know of a couple, but Renee, you know, share with us what you use to budget your money and what types of tools are out there for that.
So I am very much old school. So I still use my Excel spreadsheet for my budget. I am aware that like Mint has one, has a really good app. I used Mint a few years and I just didn't like it. I don't know. I just wanted to use my Excel spreadsheet. And maybe because I spent so much time putting it together, I'm like, this is what I'm going to use.
Excel is a powerful tool though.
It is, absolutely. But that one, and I hear people talk about Every Dollar. That's another one that people use. But me personally, I don't have an app on my phone for my budget. Now, I do have my budget uploaded to my Google Drive, and I have Google Drive on my phone, so I can easily access my budget if I needed to from my phone. But I don't have a specific app that I use for budgeting.
Okay. One that I use, I know, is a Good Budget. That works really well. And that's the one I've been using for the last 5 or 6 years. It's only about $45 a year for the subscription. And it's not as robust as Mint, but it definitely provides a lot of good tools to make sure that you stay on top of the budget.
What is it called?
Good Budget.
Okay.
Okay. Goodbudget.com. So there was another question I actually wanted to ask you, Renee, too, because you briefly mentioned having a 6-month buffer, right? But given our current climate and what we're headed towards, do you still believe that 6 months is a viable length of time to save for, or do you think we should extend that? Like, what are your thoughts on savings going forward?
So I think it's dependent on the household, right? If you have 2 individuals that's bringing an income, actually, if it's 2 individuals bringing an income, I say 6 months. If it's 1 individual, I actually say 3 months, right? Because it generally takes about that long, 3 months, to find new work. Now, I know that people are saying, no, it takes a lot longer than that. You can't get another job in just 3 months. You may not get the job that you want or that you feel like you're qualified for in that 3-month span, but you can definitely find something within the 3-month period. So I don't think it's a problem going out further. It depends on your plan, how long you want to stay on it. For me, I followed the 7 baby steps that was implemented by Dave Ramsey, but I also tweaked the steps to work for me, right? Because one of the things is like saving for your kids' education, right? But number 2 is just getting rid of all of that debt. But I felt strongly that I needed to continue to save for my kids' education, even while I was paying off debt. So I probably could have gotten out of debt sooner or faster, probably a year or so faster, if I had explicitly followed the steps to the T in the order that they were in. But like I said, I felt strongly that I just needed to be saving right earlier on for my kids' education. So I accepted the fact that it would take me a little bit longer to get out of debt. So with that 6 months emergency fund money, if you want to save for a year or 10 months, it's just going to take you longer to get out of whatever, to get out of the debt that you're in, if you're going to do it that way, or if you want to, like, say, contribute a certain amount by a certain time to your 401k or to your retirement. It just might take you a little bit longer because you've decided you want to spend this extra time doing the emergency fund.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, I should have said it earlier, along with good budget, Renee, guess what I couple as a tool to manage the budget? An Excel spreadsheet. So you're not alone. You're not alone. So, the next thing I want to get into, because I love success stories and I love hearing the pot, and maybe you have a success story outside of yourself. But one thing I do know about you, Renee, is being, we say financial freedom, like tongue in cheek, and it sounds all great, but there are some real practical things that having that freedom from debt has enabled you to now do in your life that you couldn't do before you were working on it. What types of things are you now able to do in your life with your family as a result of being debt free?
The one thing that we have done more of, there are two big things. We travel more because now we kind of could, I'm going to just take this amount of money out of here and we're going to go on a cruise, or we're going to go to the Virgin Islands or whatever. So we travel a little bit more than we used to. And we travel to more places that we want to travel to. Does that make sense? Like that was another thing, even going through the steps, I thought it was always important to have family vacation and go off and do things like that. So we still did that, but we might have gone somewhere local, whereas now we can go abroad. The other thing that this has allowed me to do more of is to upgrade my house. So we've gotten our bathroom totally redone. We've gotten the floors done throughout the entire downstairs. We have completely redid the kitchen. So we got new cabinetry, sink, floor, everything, appliances. So we're able to do some of those things. And we're also able to, this kind of goes back to the money and saving. We now can put more towards retirement, right? Because our goal is to retire at least by the time we're 55. So that's our goal, my husband and I's goal. So who knows, with the extra money we have put in there, maybe we can do it a few years earlier than that. We don't know. So those are some of the things that I can do now. But I still watch my money and I watch my numbers and I'm still like, when you've been trained so long to just like kind of be a little frugal, it's really hard to just bust out of that shell. And at the same time, we have 2 boys that we're raising, right? So we want to make sure that they don't think that, you can just say you want it and you get it. We want them to understand that it comes with a lot of work, a lot of hard work too.
It does. So what about investments? Right? Where do we go forward with investments once we get to that point? And by the way, just saying, like, freedom, like, it's not just freedom from debt. Like, your entire life has freedom now. You can choose.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I think that I don't want anyone to miss that. Right? Before we even move into the investment part, like, just take a moment to breathe that in and really think about the fact that, wow, like, my entire life has freedom now because I'm debt free. So
Yeah, I
amazing.
mean, you wake up in the morning and you're not wondering, did I get paid today? Because mortgage is due, or
Yeah.
did I get paid? I got to get my rent paid or whatever. You're not, you don't have to think about that, right? I mean, as much as I love my job, um, I still feel like I want to work and need to work a little bit longer to accomplish my goals, my financial goals. So, but if something happened, right? If I was to be laid off or what have you, is there so much peace and knowing that I don't have to worry about where I'm going to stay or if my house is
Mhm.
going to go in foreclosure or, or if I have to look for 3 months before anything happens, so that freedom is unmatched, right? You can't put a dollar amount, right, to
No,
peace.
no.
Yeah.
Right. You're
Yeah.
right about
Yes.
that. It's exciting.
Yeah. So
Yes. And so I know that some people, when you're talking about a house and a home being paid for and being paid off in full, so was just looking at a friend's Facebook, and there was like a mobile home that you can pay off in like 5 years. It's like $3,000 down, $1,200 a month. You'll have it paid off in 5 years.
wow.
I know that you don't live in a mobile home, Renee. But can you share with us a little bit about the methodology, behind like paying off a home
Yeah.
for all those things? Because I know for most of my life, I've had a 30-year mortgage.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. So I started off with a 30 year as well, right? Until I learned about the 15-year. It's almost like we're forced to do a 30-year, right? That's all they offer us. You ask them to run the numbers and tell you how much you're eligible for, and they come back and tell you this is how much you are eligible for on a 30-year plan. So, like, they don't even consider the 15-year, right? So, when I learned more about the 15-year, and I happened to learn more about the 15-year, I think it was around 2008, where I learned about the 15-year. At that time, if you remember, it was an opportune time because the interest rates were so incredibly low. So, going from a 30-year to a 15 may have impacted us by maybe $40 a month.
Mm.
It was so minimal that it was like a no brainer, right? So we were like, okay, yeah, let's do this 15-year. And so we had already been on a trajectory of getting rid of debt and try and using the debt snowball method. So once we finished paying off the $75,000, that took us 3 years to pay that off. But once we finished paying the $75,000 off, what we did was we rolled some of it. I wanted to do all of it. My husband was like, "Chill, we just did 75,000. We good, you know." Um, but I was just in that mode, right, where like, oh, we don't have any more debt. Like maybe we could do the mortgage now, and so we took a chunk of that money that we had been paying towards debt for those 3 years and we applied it to the mortgage, all of it, all of that, not all of it, but a big chunk of it towards the mortgage. So now we're paying like double or something a month for the mortgage. And then I actually paid my mortgage off in 2020, right at the height of the pandemic. And
Oh.
I had planned to go into 2021 paying it off, but with the pandemic came my kids being at home, so I don't have to pay aftercare. Um, work went fully remote, and so if you live in Atlanta, you know what the traffic is like here and how much money you can easily spend in gas. So now I'm home all this time, and my husband um, is home too. So everybody's in the house. So we were saving a ton because we wasn't paying aftercare anymore. We were no longer paying for gas to put fuel in our car to get back and forth to work. So I was rolling all of those dollars over to the mortgage. So that's how we paid it off a little bit before schedule, but going from 30 to 15 and then doubling up made that happen even faster. So our 15-year loan was paid off in about 7 years, right? Because we were doubling
Mhm.
throughout the whole process. Now, does that mean that um, we had to live a life of deprivation? No, we didn't. We had gotten accustomed to what we were accustomed to. We, like I told you, I tweaked. We were still taking trips. We weren't going to, you know, to the Virgin Islands or whatever, but we were still taking our trips. Um, but we weren't. We were being very intentional not to do any wasteful spending. Right?
So
There's a
no DoorDash to your home.
no,
No Uber Eats.
no, no. And I just started I did DoorDash a few times since I've been debt free, just because I feel like I can, right?
I love it.
But
It was
I had a hard time paying all of the fees that go along with the food.
I know. I had that same experience. I said, "What do you mean? I'm only getting 2 items for $40?"
Right.
But that's like a whole
$40.
like 3 days of food in the grocery store planning.
Right. So when you're like you when you've paid off all this debt and you've been intentional about your spending, I don't think you just get like $100,000 and just blow it, right? That's not what you're used to, right? It's just kind of like our upbringing, right? And I was telling somebody this the other day, um, where actually I went to the hair salon and I was eating my food like while I was in the chair. I was like, let me get my Chick-fil-A. It was like first thing in the morning, and I left my juice in the chair, and she says, "You're not gonna get your drink?" And I was like, "Girl, no. I grew up where the drink was like dessert." So I would eat all of my food. That's how my mom raised us. You didn't drink your Kool-Aid until after the food was off the plate. So
Same
that's
here.
how that's how it was going through this process of just not wastefully spending or whatever. It's in you, like it's a part of you. It's now part of your personality. So now when you do have the money and the funds, you're not going crazy, right? And just spending everywhere, you know. So it wasn't a hard transition, I should say, when we did, just had the money just kind of like readily available there at our fingertips.
And so, Dave, for you in your lifestyle change, how's that been for you?
It's been amazing, right? I mean, yeah, not everybody probably knows my story, but I travel full time, and the ability to create this life started with the foundation of being debt free, of
Mhm.
being able to take steps necessary to position myself. And that's one of the things that, as a purpose coach, one of the things that we have to do to position ourselves for purpose and for what that calling is in our lives is we have to steward what's been given to us well, right? And what Renee's talking about here is in fact stewardship.
Yep.
And so in order to move forward with the journey that I'm personally on, as Janelle's pointing out, I had to position myself, and a big part of that is being financially free. And because of that, I was able to purchase things that enabled this journey to happen. So yeah, good point there too, Janelle, pointing that out. It's been amazing for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if
It's a
anyone has any questions, and please put your questions in the chat for Renee. I'm watching to see if you have any feedback. We'd love to hear from you if you're getting something and gleaning something from this conversation. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. And so I know that we're coming up to almost completing this conversation, but it is so wonderful. And we do thank you so much for having you here with us, Renee. We know you could have been anywhere, and we do appreciate you taking out your Friday night to be with us. And how can we reach you? How can anyone listening reach out to you and see your services and inquire about getting scholarships for their children? And even if they're in school, and how to get scholarships for themselves, if that's something that they need. And then, of course, with learning more about the envelope system, of course, I shared a different type of envelope system for savings. Write 1 through 100 on an envelope, put the cash money in, pull the envelope, put the cash money in, and you'll have money saved at the end of the year. So it's a different type of envelope system I know that I talked about and that Renee's talking about. So if you'd like to know more about the envelope system, Renee, please let us know how we can reach you.
Sure. So several ways you can reach me through my website. My website is www.financialfortitudellc.com. Again, that's financialfortitudellc.com. And I also have social media accounts set up too, where you can hit me that way. My Instagram is F Fortitude LLC. Again, that's F Fortitude LLC. And on Facebook, I'm just Financial Fortitude LLC. And if you can't remember all of that, my barcode is right there. And it'll take you straight to my website with all my social media tags on it as well. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep, that's it right there. Yeah, earlier I was like, oh yeah, you can put it there, but we were trying to get through the technical issues, so you probably didn't hear.
Yes. So, Renee, we thank you so much. Any final words that you have for the audience listening?
I would just say, again, my journey is my journey, but it can be yours too. You can live a life of debt freedom. I'm living proof of that. We just heard Dave saying it does take a level of discipline, but it's doable. Like, don't let anybody tell you that it's something that is only a thing that's only for a select group of people or siloed to one group of people. Anybody can do this. Anybody can do this, and that means you. So that's what I would like to leave with others, that this is a journey that anybody could take.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I want to second it, right? Because, one of the interesting things, I'll tell this quick story, is one time as I was going through that process, somebody came into my house one day, and it's funny you bring up, I finally get to update my house. I didn't touch it. My wife didn't touch it for the most part, certainly not any big changes, even as far as not even painting the walls. So somebody comes in the house one day, your house is very simple. It felt like a backhanded compliment. I'm like, what does that mean? But I mean, truthfully speaking, right? Like, we had an empty room or two in the house because we weren't buying furniture. We weren't doing upgrades. We were taking in hand-me-down furniture and 30-plus-year-old couches and things like that. And it worked, right? It satisfied the minimum requirements for what our family needed. But, we started taking debt payoff seriously. And just to further, push that point, I still remember the very, very first year that I began to take this seriously. And by the way, right, it took enough pain. At the end of 2016, I actually had more money going out than coming in. And it took that amount of pain to finally get me to take it seriously, and I had to work 2 jobs to make it work. But here's the deal. When I took it serious and I began paying off debt, I felt like a traffic controller for how we spent money in the house, because I tell my wife and kids, okay, we need to stop spending money right now. Like, don't spend any more because we're off budget. And then the next month, maybe we're doing a little bit better. Okay, we have a little bit more extra. We can go. No, wait, we went too far with this. And it gets really frustrating. And I remember all those frustrating moments with my wife. But when I got to show up the next year and I did all the calculations, and I showed my wife how much we paid off the previous year. I still remember when her eyes went like this, and I said, that was what we've been working towards. Was it not worth it? And she was so excited, and there might have been tears, and it was like this big celebration that first year to say, wow, we were able to do this. We've never done this in our lives before, but it proves that with the discipline that Renee's talking about, it is possible. And when it happens to you, I'm telling you, it gives you the momentum to do it a second and a third year, however long it takes, because you begin to see that light at the end of the tunnel, right? And that momentum builds, and you begin to dream again about what kind of freedom you can have as you take the journey. So thank you for being with us today, Renee, for sharing that, for helping me to remember the excitement of being financially free.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
You're very welcome. And it is January, Financial Wellness Month. We do encourage you to reach out to Renee if the CNBC article was correct, that the people are wanting to have a financial resolution to save more money, pay off credit cards, and budget. Renee can definitely help you with your budget, guys. So we thank you so much for tuning in to Power Fridays Live again on a Friday night at 7 p.m. We're here each and every Friday night, 7 p.m. Please do tune in to Power Fridays Live at www.powerfridayslive.com. Thank you so much, Renee, with Financial Fortitude. And can you let us know where we can get your book? I believe you didn't share about your book.
Oh, sure, absolutely. You can actually go to the website, my website, and it'll take you over to Amazon. And if you just want to go straight to Amazon, the book is A Journey to Financial Fortitude: How I Paid Off 75K, Went to College Debt Free, and Paid Off My Mortgage. So you can go to Amazon to grab it, or you can go to my website, which will direct you over to Amazon.com to purchase the book.
Very good. Thank you so much. Well, as we always say, be, do, and have the greatness that you desire because the greatness is in you. And just like Renee said, if you want to be debt free, it will be up to you and it is possible. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next week on Power Fridays Live. Thanks so much. Have a great night. Bye bye.
See you. Good night.